Hi, I'm Elena, I'm 39, and lately, I feel like I've been living with a man who used to love me and now just tolerates me. I know that sounds harsh. And maybe I'm being dramatic. But when your husband looks at you like you've embarrassed him, like you are the thing he needs to fix, it starts to rot something inside you. Especially when all you're doing is being seen. So yeah, I post pictures online. Nothing scandalous. Just me in outfits I like. Sometimes in a fitted dress or a swimsuit on vacation. I work out, I take care of myself. And it makes me feel good to share it. Like, for once, I'm not invisible. But my husband, Matt, he says I'm setting a bad example for our teenage son. That I'm inviting the wrong kind of attention. I told him to get with the times. But it's not just about that anymore. It's about the way he stopped seeing me long before I ever posted anything. When Matt and I first met, it was electric. He made me laugh like no one else. He used to text me in the middle of the day just to say he missed my mouth. We had a rhythm, our private jokes, the little touches when we'd pass each other in the kitchen. His hand would find my waist without even looking. I used to feel sexy just breathing around him. We had our son, Caleb, young right after I turned 25. And sure, things got real. Hard. But there was still this undercurrent of us. We'd crawl into bed after putting Caleb down, and Matt would curl his body around mine like a shield. Even our silences were warm then. But something started to shift around the time I turned 35. I can't point to one thing. Just the accumulation of quiet letdowns. A quick kiss on the cheek instead of on the lips. A hug where his arms stiffened like he didn't really want to linger. I remember one night, I'd bought this silky emerald top, low in the back. I wore it to dinner, just the two of us. And I saw the way the waiter looked at me, his smile lingered. But Matt? He just frowned. Said, "You're really wearing that?" And I laughed, tried to play it off. "You used to love when I wore stuff like this." He shrugged. "We're not 20 anymore, Elle." That stung. Not just because it made me feel foolish, but because that little sentence? It was like watching the version of me he loved walk away. The first time he brought up my posts, I was floored. It was a picture of me in a sundress, standing in our backyard. My hand on my hip. A little son on my shoulder. I had maybe 300 followers, mostly women, mostly moms. But he pulled me aside, voice low like I'd committed some crime. "Do you really think that's appropriate? What if Caleb's friends see it?" I blinked. "See what?" "I'm wearing a dress. On a deck. You're trying to be sexy. You don't need to broadcast it." And I don't know, something about that word, broadcast, hit me in the gut. Because it wasn't just about modesty. It was about control. About him wanting me to shrink. To tuck myself in. To go back to being invisible as long as it made him more comfortable. But here's the moment I knew something had really changed. A few weeks ago, I was standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom. I was wearing this vintage bikini I'd found online, high-waisted, tasteful, but flattering. I was excited. I hadn't felt cute in a while. Matt walked in. I turned, hoping maybe he'd smile, say something teasing. His eyes flicked over me, and then he shook his head and said, "Are you planning to post that?" I just stood there, bare feet on the carpet, suddenly aware of every inch of skin. He didn't say I looked good. He didn't even say I looked bad. He just made me feel like a problem. Like a mother who forgot her place. I waited for a beat. For him to walk over. Touch my waist. Do anything. But he left. Didn't even close the door. That night, I lay next to him in bed and he curled up with his back to me. His warmth didn't reach me. Not even a brush of skin. And I realized I hadn't felt wanted in my own marriage for a long, long time. So yeah, I told him to get with the times. But what I meant was, see me again. Or I'll keep showing up in the world without you. Because I'm not shrinking anymore. Matt is a high school guidance counselor. You'd think, of all people, he'd be good at communication. But at home? It's like talking to a locked door. He notices when Caleb's friends are withdrawing or if a kid is spiraling because of pressure, but with me? He barely notices when my smile doesn't reach my eyes anymore. This morning, I was at the kitchen island, scrolling through emails and sipping burnt coffee. I just posted a short reel from our beach trip, nothing wild, just me walking barefoot in a linen wrap, laughing with my sunglasses on. It was honestly a video Caleb took. He said I looked 5Y. Matt came down in gym shorts, still damp from his morning run. He leaned in behind me and kissed my neck. It was a light kiss, but it felt strategic. A little too practiced. Like a routine. I didn't lean back. He slid his arms around my waist anyway and rested his chin on my shoulder. "You posting again?" he asked lightly, eyes on my phone. I locked the screen. "Yeah, something small." He chuckled softly. "Don't let my students find you." "I'll never live it down." I turned toward him then, trying not to let my tone sharpen. "You make it sound like I'm doing something shameful." He pulled back a little, brows drawing in. "That's not what I meant." But he didn't clarify what he did mean. Instead, his hands slid down my hips like he wanted to smooth things over physically. "Come here," he whispered. "You know I still think you're the hottest mom at every parent night." I froze. Because that wasn't the compliment he thought it was. It was a line. One of his go-to ways to dodge discomfort with charm and sex appeal. "Matt," I said, gently moving his hands away, "I don't want to be touched right now. I want to feel heard." He looked confused. Like I'd just spoken a language he wasn't fluent in. "I do hear you," he said, frowning. "You don't want me embarrassed. You want your page." "I get it. I'm just saying it's complicated. Caleb's 15. Kids can be. I'm not trying to be Caleb's buddy. I'm his mom. And I'm also me. A woman. A person who deserves to take up space." He exhaled, rubbing his face. "This again. That did it. This again." Like the ache in my chest is just white noise to him. That night, he tried again. I was in bed, reading a thread about women reclaiming their bodies post-motherhood. Matt came out of the shower, towel low on his hips, and slid into bed beside me. His hand grazed my thigh, tracing light, familiar patterns. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. "You're so beautiful," he said, lips brushing my shoulder. "I'm not in the mood," I said quietly. He stilled. "You never are lately." And just like that, the room shrank. I closed the book. "Because it feels like you only want my body when it's convenient. But you don't see me, Matt. You don't ask how I'm doing. You don't ask why I post or what it means to me. You just roll your eyes and make me feel like a teenager acting out." He rolled onto his back. "I do see you, Elle. I just don't understand this need for external validation." I stared at the ceiling. It's not about validation. It's about expression. It's about not disappearing. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. His hand reached for mine halfway through the night, but I was already turned away. And in that silence, I felt the gap between us widen into something harder to cross. It's not that I don't love Matt. I do. I think. It's just. I'm starting to feel like I have to armor up every time he walks into a room. Like I have to anticipate which version of him I'm going to get. The playful flirt who smacks my butt on the way to the laundry room, or the stern dad voice version who reminds me to tone it down online. I don't know which is worse anymore. It was Sunday. The weather was soft and warm, the kind that makes you want to sit in the sun with your eyes closed. I'd spent the morning cleaning out the linen closet, just trying to stay busy. Matt found me upstairs, kneeling on the hallway floor, folding towels. He walked up behind me and, without saying anything, swatted my butt playfully. Not hard. But not lightly either. I flinched. Not because it hurt, but because it felt so off. Like he was still pretending we were in that old version of our relationship, the one where that kind of thing would make me giggle, spin around, and wrap my arms around his neck. I didn't giggle. I didn't spin around. I just said flatly, "Don't." He blinked. "What?" I stood up, still holding a towel, not looking at him. "I'm not in the mood for that." He laughed a little, trying to play it off. It was just a love tap. Relax. And that made my stomach twist. I'm tired of being told to relax when I say something real. Later that night, after Caleb had gone to his friend's house for a sleepover, we were watching a movie on the couch. Or pretending to. I was curled up on one end, legs tucked under me. Matt was nursing a beer and half watching the screen. Halfway through, he slid closer, pulling the blanket over both of us. His hand rested on my thigh, thumb tracing lazy circles. My body didn't recoil exactly, but it didn't soften either. I sat still, watching the screen, trying to breathe evenly. He leaned in and kissed my cheek, then slowly turned my face toward him. His lips brushed mine, soft and slow. I let him kiss me, but inside I felt flat. Like I was acting. Like my body had been trained to respond a certain way, but my heart had clocked out hours ago. He pulled back a little and smiled, rubbing his nose against mine. "I miss this," he said. I nodded. I didn't say it back. Then he kissed me again, this time deeper, a little more eager, and his hand slid up my side, over the curve of my waist. Something inside me tightened. Not out of fear. Out of dread. I turned my face away gently. "Elle," he asked, still holding me. I shook my head. "I can't." "You can't, or you won't?" He wasn't angry. Just confused. But his voice had that edge. The one that made me feel like I was disappointing him. I sighed and pulled the blanket around me tighter. "I don't know. I'm tired." He sat back, looking at me with this wounded expression that somehow made me feel like the villain. "I'm trying here," he said quietly. I nodded again, wishing I could explain it without making him feel worse. Wishing I could explain it to myself. Because I want him. I want to fall into him the way I used to. To laugh at his dumb jokes and kiss him back like it means something. But lately, even when he touches me, I feel like I'm drifting further away. Like I'm watching us through glass. I crawled into bed early that night, alone, and curled onto my side. My phone buzzed. A few comments on my latest post, women saying they felt empowered, inspired, alive. And I just lay there, staring at the wall, asking myself the same question I've asked for weeks now. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened on a Thursday night. We were having dinner, chicken parmesan, Caleb's favorite. Except Caleb wasn't home. He was out late for soccer practice, so it was just me and Matt at the table. It should have been peaceful. He poured me a glass of wine, lit a candle, put on that playlist he made when we first moved into the house, back when things still felt soft and warm between us. I could tell he was trying. He pulled out my chair, smiled like old times. But the air around us felt forced, like someone trying to fix a cracked window by hanging curtains over it. Halfway through the meal, he brought it up. "So, that photo today," he said lightly, twirling pasta around his fork. "The one in the tank top." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "What about it?" He kept his eyes on his plate. "Just wondering if it really needed to go online. It's pretty suggestive, Elle." I blinked. Suggestive? I was in jeans and a tank top, holding a coffee mug. My collarbone was showing. That was it. I set my fork down, quietly. "Matt, it's a picture. A normal one. It's not even remotely sexual." He looked up. Caleb said his friend's older brother saw it and started asking him questions. He was embarrassed. I stared at him. "So now it's my fault our son feels awkward around teenagers?" "I'm just saying, maybe there's a line we shouldn't cross. You're a mom, Elle. That comes with some responsibility." And that was it. The floodgate. I slammed my napkin down on the table. Asterisk, you think I don't know I'm a mom? You think I've forgotten that? I gave up a decade of my life pouring everything into this family, into you, into Caleb. And the second I try to reclaim even the tiniest part of myself, I'm humiliating everyone. My voice cracked. "Do you even see me anymore, Matt?" His face went pale. His fork clinked against the plate. "Elena, it's not like that, no." "It is. You don't care how I feel. You care how I look to other people. You care about what Caleb's friends say, what your coworkers might think. You care about your embarrassment." He stood now, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You're twisting everything I say. I'm trying to protect our family from becoming some kind of spectacle." "A spectacle?" I laughed through tears now. "You mean like a woman over 35 who refuses to disappear quietly? God forbid I post a picture where I actually look alive." Silence. He didn't yell. Didn't even argue. He just stood there, staring at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. Which made two of us. I fled to the bathroom. Locked the door. Sat on the cold tile floor, sobbing into my hands, the candlelight from the hallway still flickering under the crack. And then the shame crept in. Fast and hard. I'd ruined dinner. Again. I'd lashed out. Again. I'd made Matt the enemy in a war he didn't even know we were fighting. Was I selfish? Was I turning into someone I never wanted to be? I looked at myself in the mirror, face flushed and blotchy, mascara smudged. Was I just lonely? Is that all this really was? A desperate cry to feel wanted outside the walls of this house? The guilt stuck to my ribs. I didn't want to hurt Matt. I didn't want to make Caleb feel awkward or ashamed of me. But still, underneath all the noise in my head, a tiny voice whispered, "Why is it so wrong to want to be seen?" 3 weeks passed. No more candles at dinner. No slow playlists. Just the low hum of the dishwasher at night and the echo of forks scraping plates. Matt still kissed my cheek before work, but it was mechanical, like muscle memory. His hands didn't linger. His eyes didn't really land on me. He'd text to say he'd be late, but no longer added "love you" at the end. I noticed. God, I noticed everything. One night, I walked into the living room and found him folding laundry. He was watching some old sci-fi movie, one of those we used to make fun of together. Normally, he'd look up, pat the couch beside him, and say something like, "Come here, Space Cadet." But he didn't. He didn't even glance at me. I stood in the doorway for a second too long, unsure what to do. Eventually, I walked into the kitchen instead, my heart sinking. The ache wasn't from anger anymore, it was from missing him. The version of him that used to make room for me in every corner of his life. The next morning, I found a half-written email draft open on his laptop, an open window he must have forgotten to close. It was addressed to someone named Aaron. Subject: things I can't say at home. I didn't read the whole thing. Just the first line: "I think we're both lost. And I don't know how to find her again without losing more of myself." I closed the laptop. My throat tightened. Matt wasn't cold out of spite. He was hurting, too. Later that evening, I watched him from the hallway as he sat on Caleb's bed, helping him with geometry. His voice was calm, patient. He smiled when Caleb got the answer right, ruffled his hair just like always. That version of him, the warm, gentle teacher, was still there. But when he stood up and walked past me in the hallway, his shoulder barely brushed mine. No words. No glance. We moved like strangers. I missed him. I missed us. I missed feeling chosen. And in all my anger, I'd never stopped to think Matt wasn't just reacting to my posts. He was reacting to losing me too. To a version of me that had changed without warning. He'd met me when I was younger, soft-edged, eager to please. And now I was sharper. More aware of what I wanted. Louder in ways he didn't know how to hold. Was that my fault? Was it anyone's? I sat alone on our porch that night, barefoot on the wooden steps, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Matt holding Caleb at the beach. Of me and Matt on our anniversary, cheeks flushed from wine, faces pressed close. We looked happy. Not performative happy, real happy. Back then, he didn't care what I posted. He'd take the photos himself. What changed? Was it the world? Or was it us? Inside, I heard his footsteps, soft, familiar. He paused near the porch door, then turned and walked away. He didn't join me. He didn't ask if I was okay. But I couldn't even blame him. I hadn't asked either. I sat there a long time, heart heavy, hands in my lap. And I realized distance wasn't always created by a single explosion. Sometimes it was built slowly, brick by brick of unspoken things. I missed the version of us that knew how to reach across those bricks. The ache was sharp. But underneath it was a question I finally couldn't ignore. Did I still want to rebuild? Or was I already gone? The morning it ended or changed, or whatever word you want to use when something soft finally breaks, was a Sunday. Gray light poured in through the kitchen windows. I was making coffee, slowly, half aware of my own movements. The house was quiet. Caleb was still asleep. Matt walked in, his hair still wet from the shower. He wore the hoodie I'd bought him last Christmas. The one he hadn't touched in weeks. He poured his own cup of coffee without a word. The silence stretched long and taut between us. And then he said it, gently, as if he'd been rehearsing. "Elle, are we okay?" It wasn't a question, really. More like a whisper of grief. I stared at the back of his hand as he gripped his mug. That same hand used to brush hair out of my eyes. Cup the small of my back. Now, it barely reached for me at all. I could have lied. I could have said yes. But instead, I said the only thing I had left in me, I don't know. He nodded slowly. Like he expected it. Like maybe he'd already known. We sat down across from each other at the table. The same spot where we'd eaten countless meals, argued about bedtime routines, laughed over spilled milk. But now we looked like old friends with too much history and not enough language left. "I'm sorry," he said, voice thick. "If I made you feel small. Or like you had to hide who you are." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a few years ago. The quiet sadness he'd been carrying. "I know you didn't mean to," I said. "But I did feel that way." And I started building walls before I could even explain why. He reached across the table then. His fingers brushed mine. I let them. "I wanted to protect us," he said. "But maybe I just held too tight. Tried to keep things how they used to be." I nodded. "And I wanted to feel like I mattered. Like I could still be seen without needing your permission." We sat like that, hands barely touching, everything in between us finally spoken, not yelled, not broken open in anger, but laid down like shared burdens. Then he asked, "Do you think we can come back from this?" My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe that love was enough. But I also knew, sometimes, love isn't the same thing as compatibility. Sometimes, people grow in different directions, quietly, slowly, until they turn around and realize they're standing on opposite shores. I pulled my hand away gently. "I don't think I can be that version of me again. The one who needed less. And I don't think you can unsee me the way I am now." He didn't argue. Just let the words land. Then he stood, walked around the table, and pulled me into a hug. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of hug you give someone when you both know it's the last one that will still mean something. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I'll always care for you," he whispered. And I closed my eyes, arms around his waist, and held him tighter than I had in months. That night, he slept on the couch. Not out of anger. Not even because we decided anything official. Just because we needed space for the truth to settle. I watched him from the hallway, one leg hanging off the side, his chest rising slowly. We weren't enemies. We just weren't us anymore. And somehow, that hurt less than I expected. "Hi. It's me again, Elena. 39. Woman, wife, mother, former version of herself." It's been a few weeks since Matt moved into the guest room. We haven't said the word separation yet, but the air between us knows. It's that strange kind of grief, slow, polite quiet. No yelling, no slammed doors. Just two people loving each other in a way that no longer fits. I still cook dinner most nights. He still fixes the Wi-Fi when it cuts out. We're still us, in pieces. But not the kind that fit together anymore. And somehow, that realization has brought me more peace than I thought it would. Looking back now, I think I was waiting for someone to give me permission to take up space. I wanted Matt to cheer for me, yes, but deeper than that, I wanted to believe I could be visible and loved. Desired and respected. A mother and a woman who still turns heads and owns her body without apology. What I've learned is this: if the cost of being loved is shrinking, that love will never feel safe. And shrinking can be so quiet, can't it? It doesn't always come in big, dramatic moments. Sometimes it's in the little things: a hug that feels like a task, a compliment that sounds like a correction, a silence that grows teeth. Desire, for me, was never just about sex. It was about being known. Being seen in full color and still chosen. And that's what was missing. I didn't stop wanting Matt. I stopped feeling wanted by him. That subtle, aching difference, it wrecked me in ways I didn't even know how to name. We talk a lot about physical intimacy in relationships, but not enough about emotional safety. The kind where you can say, "I need more," and not be met with shame. The kind where you can change, and the person who loves you doesn't panic. Doesn't try to pull you back to who you used to be. I don't regret speaking up. I don't regret the photos, or the posts, or the choice to stop disappearing. What I do regret is waiting so long to ask myself what I really needed. I kept thinking the problem was that Matt didn't understand me, but the truth is, I hadn't really let myself understand me either. I thought wanting to feel sexy, to feel seen, was shallow. But it wasn't vanity, it was survival. It was me trying to claw my way back to the woman who existed before labels like wife and mother started drowning her. I still love him. I probably always will, in a soft, familiar way. He's the father of my child. My first real home. But I think we both outgrew that version of us without realizing it. And that's okay. Some relationships aren't meant to last forever. Some are meant to show us who we are, what we won't settle for, and where we still need healing. If you're listening to this, maybe lying awake at night next to someone who's warm but distant, or looking at yourself in the mirror wondering where you went, just know this. You're not selfish for wanting to feel alive. You're not wrong for needing to be seen. And love, real love, doesn't ask you to disappear. It meets you where you are and stays. Or, if it can't, it lets you go with grace. And maybe that's still a kind of love, too. Be too.